Hello, hello everyone. Happy Motivational Monday. My name is Kira. I am your host, and I am so excited to have you here for another episode with Alvaro. And today we're diving into wiring for wealth. So we'll be diving into a little bit of the ways that we can actually work with ourselves and our brains to start setting up the money management of being able to be confident with our finances, of being able to trust ourselves with our money. And I'm going to ask you guys a question before we even get started. If you were on last week's episode, Alvaro and I challenged you. And Alvaro, I don't know if you remember the challenge that you gave them last week. It had to do with their daily hygiene and what they do when they go shopping. So, we gave you all a challenge that if you were going shopping and you had this desire to impulse purchase something, that you would drink a sip of water instead. Because when your body is stressed out, you'll make stressed out decisions. But when your body is feeling good, you'll make feeling good decisions. So I'm curious, drop 111 in the chat if you drank water while you were shopping over this past week. And with that, it's this reminder of we can do little work every day. When we start talking about big, big, big change that we look to change in our lives, right? It's usually a big upheaval. We know where we are right now and we know we want to go, but it's the getting there that's the harder part, right? So, with that, one, we are life guides. It is me and Alvaro today sharing on wiring your mind for wealth. But beyond that, we have these sessions where you're able to join a group session, get some information, grow, do your own little self-reflective work. But the bread and butter of what we do and the juiciest part where you're going to have the greatest transformation is having a guide support you on your journey. So I bring guides into this conversation so you can see how cool they are. So you can say, hey, I know that if I hop on a conversation with this person and I tell them where I'm at and where I want to go, that they're going to help me get there. So, Life Guides is here for you. I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you. And this is where you can register for all of our events. You can schedule your first call with a guide, and you can also access additional resources that we have for you. We got snow here today for the first time, and well, this season, and I just feel cozy. And the music that I shared today was Jose Gonzalez. I'll share his Spotify profile with you all. He's gonna be in town for a show this weekend, so I was like, oh, let me play his music. But his music definitely has this I'm cold, I want to cozy up and like do something cozy and meaningful kind of vibe to it. Because I know you all are music lovers. Drop 333 in the chat if you're a music lover. Also, none of you drank water this past week. Unbelievable. Well, while you were shopping, let's try again this week. I didn't either, just so you know. I did go shopping and I did not drink water before I purchased anything, but I was thinking about it and it's a reminder, and I'm like, okay. Oh, that's what I was saying. To grow, we get this idea that we know where we are now and we know where we want to go, right? And we want to get there so fast. Drop 444 in the chat if you want to get there so fast. If you're like, I've been struggling with my finances for so long, I just want to get it right. I can't believe it's another year of having this debt and accruing interest. I want to solve it right now. Oh, the holidays are upcoming. I don't know what to do. I feel like I don't have enough money or energy or support. I'm stressed and I want to solve it right now. The thing is, anywhere that we're at with our money, it's taken us time to get there. And it'll take us some time to get out of there. And that's perfectly fine. But when we realize that it takes time, I think we give ourselves a little bit more grace. And that's going to be part of the conversation that Alvaro and I have with you today is this work takes time and it takes effort. And we're not trying to go 0 to 100 in a week. By the end of this financial well-being series for this quarter, you will not have resolved all of your financial problems or your challenges or had brand new epiphanies that have changed everything for you, but you will have a foundation. You will have a mindset. You will have resources, and you will have a team of people who can be your accountability partner and help you get to where you want to go. So, as Alvaro and I have this conversation today, I want you to remember you can't go from 0 to 100 without burning out or losing a lot of things that matter to you in the process. You can do it sustainably. And what that looks like is if you grow 0.3% every day for the next 365 days, it's not even 1% a day. It's not even half of a percent a day. It's a third of a percent a day. If you grow 0.3% every day for the next year, you will have grown 109%. You will be an entirely new person, and you will have done it with sustainable efforts and sustainable mindsets, sustainable accountability partners. And it'll be a shift that it took time to get to, but it will be long lasting and it will withstand the storms of life that always happen. So, with all that being said, Alvaro, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you for today's conversation. We are talking about wiring our mind for wealth. And, we've talked a lot about mindset. You're a neuroscientist, you're an executive coach, you are one of our guides with life guides. You have so much wisdom to bring to the table. And I know that this is basically a part two to last week's conversation, more so talking about how to make your mind make money, going through the habit loop, learning how to set up habits, right? And then also how to eat an elephant, right? One baby step at a time. You can't eat a whole elephant all at once, just like you can't change your financial situation all at once. So today is essentially part two, how to really wire your mind for that wealth because your mind is what's driving all of your actions. So, Alvaro, what is the first emotional signal that tells someone their current money mindset isn't serving them anymore?
Uh, thanks for having me here again. I'm actually absolutely learning so much myself, just about myself, but also through the conversations about society in general on this whole financial topic. Um, and I want to clarify, I am not a neuroscientist, but I am a neuroscience-based coach. So I like to get my hands really mucky and learn all about neuroscience that I can around communications and around the human condition. So I'm not an ocular neuroscientist, or I'm not, and so it's really important I make that distinction. So the emotional part, so it comes down to emotional construct, which we've talked about in previous sessions. What are the signals? We all know them. Our head in the sand, our denial, our impulse buys, and what do they sound like? Well, usually it comes up with language around avoidance or justification. Maybe we're pleasing, right? So we go out for dinner, and the check comes, and you say, "Oh, no, let me get that," even though you've got $32 left in your bank account, and you're just maxing out your credit card, but you still want to please, right? That's me. I mean, I'm the guy, right? We go out, and yeah, no, I'll get this round, um, and so that should be a telltale sign that you're emotionally reaching for something through a purchasing decision. And it's not that it's always unhealthy, and yet you should be extremely curious about it and say, what is it that I really am trying to achieve here? I want to be accepted, I want to be loved, I want to be recognized, I want to be adulated. What are those things? And those are the emotional signals that are saying you may be spending money that you don't have. We all go through this. We all go through this mental challenge. You could be at the lineup at the grocery store, and it used to be a magazine, that would tell you how to lose weight in 3 days, and we just do these impulse buys, or we're not going to eat sugar. We're not going to eat sugar, and there's the chocolate bar, and you go, one chocolate bar's not going to, it'll be my cheat day, and we start telling ourselves these stories. Those are emotional constructs that are recurring, and when we don't stop and kind of say, oh, there I am doing it. Not so much with a whip across the back kind of thing. It's just an observation of saying, oh, I can see myself. I'm doing it right now. This is me in action, spending money I shouldn't be spending on things I don't need. There is a good time to kind of just reflect, maybe grab the water bottle, have a little sip,
Here's to that.
and let yourself slow down and say, what if I don't do this? will the world end? If I don't pay for everybody's meal today, will I still be loved? Will I still be accepted?
Hmm.
And it's so simple and yet so challenging, as many things in life are.
It really is. It's the realization also of like our motives, right? I'm I'm in a place I don't pay for most people's things. I pay for my own things. I take care of my dog. I'm a single woman. But I also know that there have been times in my life where I've sought validation through either the things that I purchased for myself and how others would perceive me, or the levels of extravagance that I wouldn't have taken if I was making my own. If it was just Kira in a situation, the levels of extravagance were heightened, right? So with that, it's the understanding of the motives because now I'm in a different place. I don't necessarily seek for validation. I feel good and responsible and grounded. I feel like I have what I need to support myself. I'm not necessarily lacking. My financial well-being has been a huge part of that. So now I don't make extravagant moves at all. I'm always looking at being more financially responsible, but I'm also very aware that because I'm more financially responsible, I also feel like I have a responsibility with that. So I'm intentional about where I donate my money and where I donate my time. My motive is incredibly different. I'm not looking for validation anymore. I'm looking for, cool, I've developed financial responsibility in myself. Not only do I teach it, and not only do I help people on a daily basis, but there are people out there who don't even have the means to even get to financial responsibility as easy as I did. So I will very intentionally support that. And it feeds and fuels a different part of me. So Alvaro, you said that money is a story, not just a number. How do we begin to recognize the difference between a true financial limitation or a limiting belief that is maybe stopping us from doing the things that would match our values, but kind of pushing us in different directions that might not be supportive to us and what matters to us?
Hmm. I think going back to what you were talking about, when we look at the difference between a resource conversation, limited finances. We all have limited finances. Warren Buffett has limited finances. Elon Musk has limited finances. There is a finite number there, and limiting beliefs. Well, Warren Buffett and Elon Musk also have limiting beliefs, and so what is the fundamental difference for the everyday person? One of the things that you were talking about, because I'm a conversational intelligence coach, language has such a huge impact, and how we carry the story has such a huge impact. The resources and the beliefs are intertwined. They're not exclusively independent of each other. There's a cause and effect. If you have $100, that's a reality. That's $100 that you can spend or not. Um, that's a resource. It's just sitting there. It's benign in and of itself. Your interaction with your belief system comes in play when you do something or not with that money. If you do nothing with it, then your belief system is built around doing nothing with that money, just letting it sit there for whatever reasons, sense of safety, or desires to be a millionaire, or whatever it is. And you can see how the story evolves. So one of the things that Kira has said today, which is really important, is she kept on mentioning the word responsibility. And in society, we take that word quite often to be quite heavy and quite important and serious. And let's break it down. Responsibility, ability to respond. And so what Kira is defining for me in her story to herself on her relationship with her resources, in this case money, is that she has shifted her ability to respond. A year and a half ago, her ability to respond was limited because she was being impulsive and not conscious of her spending choices and not emotionally regulating that spending. And in creating, through her work with a life guide on every single week, showing up and having the conversation, whether she wanted to or not, really leaning into it, what she's done is she's shifted her responsibility. She still had responsibility before. It was just her ability was limited because of its nature. Now her resources have shifted because her ability to respond has shifted. So you can see how they're intertwined. Those stories are intertwined. And so the language we use with ourselves is so important. Um, I'm using Kira's language in this particular example, but what if we talk about some other languages? You know, cash flow is this relationship of money in and money out. And the stories we tell ourselves or that it tells us about ourselves can be seen in that narrative. That's why an accountant can be such a clairvoyant, if you will, a crystal ball gazer. They'll tell you what you're going to do in the next year by studying that previous 3 years. They can look at your financials and say, well, this Christmas you're going to binge, you're going to overspend, you're going to drink too much, and then you're going to take a vacation to get away from it all with money you don't have. Why? Because that's what you did the last 3 years. And there's your story. So the resources show the story. Do you want to change that narrative? And that's this first step, is just to get curious about that narrative.
Wow. I mean, I feel like so many people can relate to that. I feel like that's such a good example, especially because I feel like a lot of us feel like we lack the ability to respond, especially during the holiday times, at least in the United States. I don't know how it is in Canada, but there's so much happening. There's events, family, stress, work, money, all the things that we lack the ability to respond. And Alvaro so beautifully painted a story of the picture of my story, which was a year and a half ago. I was $30,000 in debt, living with my mom, trying to get out of the mess that I had put myself in. And it took a lot. I had the same responsibility that I did up until the time I moved out of my mom's house. Same financial responsibilities, same bills, but my mindset had changed. And my mindset had changed to one of, I really enjoy my finances. I love it, but I'm curious how many of you are like me. I ran hotels for about 10 years. Hotels are crazy. It's ridiculous. My parents owned restaurants when I was growing up, and I was like, I'll never get into restaurants. They're 24/7. And then I get into hotels and it's 25/8. I don't know what I was thinking, but you you know what it's like. So I'm like, oh my gosh. But at any given time, it doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I would have 17 problems happening. The fire department would be in my valet circle. I would have guests screaming that their Porsche was going to be hit by the fireplace. Another three guests got food poisoning, and another guest, their bathroom broke and they hurt their back. All happening at once. I love that. I thrive on that. But tell me why the first day that I took out my boat this season, it stopped working and broke down, and I had no idea what to do. And I froze, complete freeze. This situation is a much more high stress situation than the boat breaking down. But for me, what I realized, I had to really sit down and be like, why do I freeze in certain times and not in others? I only freeze as a Kira when I do not know how to get out of the situation that I'm in. I was frozen in my finances for about 6 years. Most of the larger part of that was credit card debt, I had for 5, 6 years, and I never did anything about it because I didn't know how to. So I was just in a freeze state and I did not move forward. But as soon as I got a guide and as soon as I understood the basic principles of money and as soon as I realized I wasn't alone, I was able to start making moves because I had the ability to respond, because I had the knowledge that told me, okay, if we move this way, we will get this result, which I didn't have before. So, as we're having these conversations, Alvaro, and we're talking about language and we're talking about how all the neural pathways in communication, we use a lot of language around money. We tell a lot of stories when it comes to money. What role does the language that we use, even jokingly, play in reinforcing and rewiring our wealth mindset?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. So the reason I became a conversational intelligence coach was I was looking for something solid scientifically that I could hang my hat on as a coach. And language is a portal into our neural system. There are words that trigger us. Some of them we don't use in public even because they have such strong connotations. And so it's super important to understand that even when we are being facetious or sarcastic, a lot of times self-depreciating, saying, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's it's not for a pauper like me. You know, I'm a poor guy. I can't afford that." This defines when we repeat this over and over again. This defines us, and so the cycle you're talking about, where we that freeze and appease, that's an amygdala hijack. You are
Mm.
first of all, what you're doing to your body is you are making it believe that there's a saber-toothed tiger about to eat you. 24, for you, 25/8 all the time. And so your cortisol level is up here. It's elevated and stays elevated. That is not the healthy role of cortisol. Cortisol is there to get you motivated to get out of bed and go hunt and gather so that you and your family can survive. And then it's supposed to drop in the mid-afternoon so that you can relax and feel a little bit more serotonergic, a little more sense of fulfillment, that happy feeling after not overeating on Thanksgiving. Right? So that just, that coziness of being with those you love and just being with the things that are important to you. What you're talking about here, this amygdala hijack, here's language for you. Maybe some of you have heard this saying that what we resist persists. So if you think about it, what we resist persists. And what you're saying here, Kira, is that you lived for 6, 7 years with this whole story of I freeze, I don't know what to do. And until you kind of got a life guide and explored that, leaned into it, you were resisting it. And because you were resisting it, it was persisting. In other words, what happens is that we all have a capacity to normalize things, really weird things, things that maybe for society aren't normal, right? And it's not just around financial habits, it's around relationship habits, it's around exercise habits, what we normalize. And so the guy who goes to the gym is totally jacked and spends 6 hours at the gym, most of us would say, well, yeah, it's not that normal to spend 6 hours at the gym. Well, it's been normalized for that individual. Or the musician that loses all their friends because they're so into their music. It's their normal. It's not that it's good or bad. It just becomes their normal. And whatever the reasons are, that is their normal. And so in your particular case, what you're describing, and it's quite a common story, and some of it is internal and some of it is societal. Credit card companies do want you in that state. We end up living in this resistance to deal with, to be curious, and to get mucky with our reality. And because we do that, we normalize that resistance and we keep that cortisol level high, and it manifests into anxiety, depression, stress disorders of different sorts.
Okay. So you said that you told me, and right here, right now, that what we say to ourselves matters. So money, what we say to ourselves about money also matters. And there's a lot of identity tied with money and the stories that we tell ourselves with money. So how can someone shift from maybe more of the negative connotations that they have where I'm a spender, I'm always in debt. I have a friend who's like, "Oh, I just love buying things." And she's like, "Whenever I have money, I spend it." How do we change that to now becoming a wealth aligned person, regardless of their bank account, regardless of their job today? How do we get people seeing that they are wealth aligned and ready to have that in their world?
So the fastest way from A to B on what you're saying is take a habit, replace it with a different habit. And that goes for thinking processes as well. If that is what's on your mind 24/7, then you need to change what's on your mind. And the only way we can do that is to replace it with something that we truly, genuinely yearn and desire. In this particular case, because we're talking about financing, here's what it might sound like. I'm going to be Kira for a second, a year and a half ago. Oh, we're going to get together with my friends and we're going to go out. Man, we're going to have a great time. I really don't have the money, but I really want to go out. And then she goes out and the money gets spent. They have a great time. And in the middle of it, As as the evening is winding up and everybody's had a good time, this little voice comes inside and says, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough for anybody. Because I am not a responsible person. I am not taking care of my money, and I've just spent money I don't have. I am no good. And then the moment fleets, it's gone. But that's a really deeply planted seed, and it impacts. And then the next day we wake up and we regret binge. We go for brunch, or we go spend more money that we don't have because we don't want to face the reality of our finite resources. And that's what that story looks like. And how do you change that narrative? How do you change that? We change our habits. When your friends say, we're going to go out, we're going to party, we're going to do this till, you say, I love you guys. I love just being with you guys. Why don't you come over? Bring whatever. If you have something, bring it. If you don't have something, let's just be with each other and see what happens if we don't spend money. You don't have to say that we don't spend money, but now you've changed the habit, and all of a sudden the night goes by and the sky didn't fall, and you actually had a great time, and you had some amazing conversations, and you wake up the next day and there's no hangover. Not only from binging, but no spending hangover. That's a replacement of habit. So from A to B, the fastest thing you can do is just change, which is why we said next time you're going to impulse buy, just do something to catch yourself, to slow down. Just slow down, that's all. Just change that habit. Be curious. Not with judgment, not with, oh my God, I can't do this. Just be curious, saying, what is the driver for doing this? And then you can start looking for different drivers to live your life, different things to create that yearning, that desire. We are dopaminergic machines. We can't help that. We're wired for dopamine. So we're not going to beat that. So we have to use it to our advantage. Shift where the dopamine goes, where it's pushed towards.
So, this is our last question. How does working with a guide and having a guide help you on your financial journey, help you build and replace the old habit and build a new dopaminergic reaction where you're yearning for your call with your guide, where you're yearning to have that structure, where you're yearning to have that support? How do we build that in? And then what changes when someone finally has that conversation?
So the habit that we're talking about here at Life Guys, that Kira and I keep coming back to, is if you're going to do any habit that is going to move the needle in the direction that you want to move it, we're not saying what that direction needs to be. Some of you might be scared to spend. You might have a gazillion dollars and be petrified and not have a life because you don't want to spend a penny. It's equally unhealthy. You're still in that saber-tooth story. You're scared. You're not spending out of fear. So the number one thing you can do is articulate it. Maybe to yourself first out of curiosity, what's that about? And then actually out loud, even if there's nobody in the room, just to say words out loud has so much power. And then hopefully to other people. And why a life guide? Because a life guide is a safe zone in which to get a reflection of what you're saying, to get a feedback loop that you can say, oh, I didn't see it that way, or you are seeing that, okay. And you get this kind of push and pull in a life guide conversation so you can better understand yourself in process. And if you do that regularly on a weekly basis, I guarantee in the 365 days that, we talk about this 0.3% change, it will be massive. And having structure for that is huge. I don't believe myself that conversation particularly belongs with our spouses, with our children, with our parents. It's not that we don't talk to them about it. I think that's really important in family to talk about those things. And yet, we need a personal space. And Life Guides is that personal space.
So beautiful. You articulated that so wonderfully. So Alvaro and I are here. We spend a lot of time not on these sessions talking about how to get you all the greatest results, because we know that a world full of empowered people who feel a financial responsibility and are super empowered in their money, that's what makes change, right? There are a lot of people who have a lot of money who have no good values driving it, but all of us on this call have really great values, really great purpose, and we want to help you achieve that. So we'll always plug life guides. We'll always tell you about our guides. I did drop Alvaro's profile in the chat. If you're inspired by him and if you think that he's someone who can help you on your journey, please by all means schedule a call with him. And then also try out our different guides. If you have one call with a guide and you're like, that was cool, but maybe there's someone who I'm more aligned with, by all means go for it. We do not take it personally. We want you to find your person. And the last thing to note before we finish, we do have our deep dive session next week. It is me and Charles, and we're going to be diving into basically ways to generate income outside of your job. So we'll be talking about investments, stocks, bonds, real estate, things along those lines, giving you tangible ways to make your money make you more money, and to generate additional streams of income that support you even deeper than what you're doing right now. So, thank you all so much for being here. It is always a pleasure and a joy to be on Motivational Monday. We will see you next Monday. And Alvaro, any final words before we close out?
Yeah, I got a shout out because we're doing these sessions and people are calling and they're booking, and I'm having some phenomenal conversations. And it's so heartwarming to have people step into conversations that in our society are actually quite challenging to have. They're almost taboo, right? So shout out to those of you who have reached out and booked a session because it's so appreciated.
Yeah, it's not always the easiest, but it will get you to where you want to go. And sometimes life requires us to do some of the hard things to get to the places we want to go. So thank you all so much for being here. Have a beautiful Monday. We hope that you drink water before you impulse buy this week. And other than that, stay sane and find a little bit of financial responsibility today. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.